So Dave, what do you believe needs to be done to improve the economic and business development in Oregon? What do we need to do?
Well, as I said, what we really need to do is to step back and take a look
Okay.
at the regulatory burden.
Okay.
One of the things that, for example, I've been almost 8 years now, I guess, on the Ashland Planning Commission, and I can tell you that when you start looking at the regulatory regime we have. And again, I'm a big believer in land use planning. I'm a big believer because that's a real quality of life issue, and it's also important to business because there's got to be rules about the different types of land use that can be put in place. But when you start looking at how complex they are, and over the years how they've been put together, we've just added to them. And sometimes we don't step back and ask ourselves, well, when I put this regulation in place, what's the impact on the other regulations? And so it's not only a matter of quantity, it's a matter of the complexity, and it's a matter of the interaction between those, between them. You know, we have on many occasions on the Planning Commission, we find ourselves with competing, if you will, regulations, and then you have to make some decision on that. And it's tough enough for the planning commissioner, but when you're in business and you need to move quickly, you have these business opportunities, they only come up for a fleeting moment sometimes, and the way you got to be successful is you got to move quickly, and the system just doesn't allow that too much. So those are the kinds of things that I really think that we need to take a hard look at. And at the state level, we have a quite comprehensive and complex land use code, and we should. There's nothing wrong with that, but again, my own view is that's one of the things that I would like to really do is take a good hard look at that and see what we can do to improve the economic development in this great state.
Right. So Dave, in the past few years, Oregon has faced a string of fiscal crises. How would you change the Oregon budgeting process to avoid these in the future?
Well, let's first do this. Let's take a look at a couple of charts.
Okay, all right.
Because one of the things that we need to do is we need to recognize where the problem comes from. So if you take a look at the first chart over there, you can what you will see is that this is a chart which over the last couple of decades shows the revenue that comes from our taxes, the tax money that we, the people of Oregon, send to Salem, and also the lottery funds. So this is essentially the people of Oregon.
Right.
This is the monies that the people of Oregon have been sending to the politicians in Salem. And when you look at that, you can see that although there have been a couple of dips, it's a rather steep curve. And you will often hear that the issue is revenue volatility, and we don't have enough revenue. Well, when I look at that chart, that's not what I see. What I see is a very steep increase in the amount of monies that the people of Oregon have been sending to Salem to finance our government. So, but let's take a look at the second chart, and the second chart shows what the spending has been. Now, again, this is all funds that we've got, and as you can see, that's also a very, very steep curve.
Yes.
And there have been tremendous increases in state spending and the cost of our state government. So again, I want to emphasize the fact that you know, as I move on now here and talk a little bit about the different what you need to directly answer your question about what needs to be done to improve that budget process. What we really need to do is first recognize that we do not have, I don't believe we have, what could be classified as a revenue issue, a revenue problem. We've gotten, the people of Oregon have over the years sent plenty of money up to the politicians.
Right.
In this decade alone, the revenue increase has been by over a third, about 35%, just in this decade. And so what we really need to do is to look over at the spending side. And I believe, now let's go back to what I talked about my background and what I've done with the strategic planning realm. And what you really need to do is first, you need to a three-pronged approach. You first need to look at just how is it that we go about putting together our budget. And that budget needs to start with a good, hard, bipartisan look. And this can be done bipartisan, in a bipartisan manner. A good, hard, bipartisan look at just exactly why do we have a state government? And what are the crucial, critical things that the state government does for the people of Oregon? And quite frankly, what are the things that only the state government can do? Because we do have a lot of times we fund some things that I believe are certainly nice to do, but they're not critical to what our state government should do. And then what you need to do is you need to take a hard look at what your goals and your policies are, of how you're going to get there. And then, and at that point, then you apply the resources. Well, let me back up then. But once you do that, you also then have to set your priorities. And once you've established those priorities, then you apply your resources to those priorities. And I got to tell you, what happens sometimes is we like to start programs. We like to have a larger government which does many different things, and then we try to fund all of them, and we just can't do that. And that's what the governor's reset cabinet was essentially saying. If you go to the bottom line of their final conclusion, it was, look, we can't keep doing business the way we're doing business. We cannot continue to fund all the things that Oregon has been doing in the past. What that says to me is that once you've established those priorities, you then fund those priorities, and at some point you get toward the bottom of the list, and some of those programs and some of those things that we've spent money on in the past are going to have to go away, and they're going to have to be dropped because we just don't have the money for it. Again, those are the tough decisions that sometimes have to be made. But I think that's important, because one of the problems I believe we often have with government is saying no. There's lots of different things. We all have the things that we would like to see government do, but I think that's one of the key responsibilities of a legislator is to look at someone and say, the answer is no. We just can't pay for that, and it's not one of our top priorities. Now, when I say we need to put these priorities together in this plan in a bipartisan manner, there's no reason, again, like I say, you can't work across the aisle and work on that. And we're going to have some differences of opinion, but once we decide what those priorities are and what that plan looks like, then you need to stick to that plan. You're going to make some adjustments along the way, obviously, but again, those are the ways that I believe the budget process needs to change.
So, Dave, what do you think those priorities should be? What should the highest priority be for the state of Oregon?
I break them out in basically three top priorities, and that is public safety.
That is important.
Yes. Really important.
We want to feel
safe. For somebody who's spent their life in public safety, if you will, for the people of the United States, I believe that is the first and primary responsibility of our government is to protect us and to protect our rights. And so that would be top. I also then believe that we need to take care of those in our society who cannot take care of themselves. Right. We have a moral obligation to do that, but I emphasize it's the people who cannot take care of themselves, and we need to take a hard look at what that all means, and then education. And although I gave them in that order, in my own mind, you could almost lump them all together. I mean, those are the things. And if you actually look at the budget that we've got laid out right now, those are the top funding items. It's just that within those, what are you going to pay for, and what's going to have to be dropped off when you say you're going to take care of people that can't take care of themselves. Well, what does that exactly mean? So within those, you're going to have to make some adjustments also.
Now, you mentioned that education is a top priority. Then why are we always cutting the budget for schools if it's so important?
Well, let's step back just for a second and look at the current budget. What I found interesting when I went through and analyzed it was that the current budget, total spending, as we saw on the chart there, total spending went up almost 15%. So we had a 15% increase in a 2-year period in total state spending.
Okay.
Now, understand we are in a recession,
Right.
or we're in a recession, and you're going to see increases in social spending and those kinds of things. But I find it extremely interesting that if you look at that spending, and you see this 15% increase in total spending, and then you look within the education program. Well, within the education program, and again, I'm talking about higher education, K through 12, and in all areas. What I notice is that we've reduced it by, 1%. So there's a 1% reduction. And then you dig within that and you happen to see, my goodness, within that we've reduced K through 12 5%. And we all know that if you look at the local budgets, what you see is we've reduced it a lot more. I find it interesting that although we say that education is a priority, the closer you get to the classroom, the closer you get to the place where education actually takes place, the greater the cuts. That tells me we have a leadership and a management failure at the state level. That's unacceptable, and we need to take care of that.
And how do you take care of something like that? That's critical.
What you do is let's go back to that budget process.
Okay.
You determine that this is my priority. These are my priorities, and that's what you fund.
Okay.
If those are your priorities,
back to the priorities.
Back to that priorities
Yes.
list. You've got to do that, and then you might have to say no, like I say to other things. We can't afford that because education is more important than. And if you're the person that believes in then the more important than, and that might even include me, some issues, we've got to have the discipline to say no.
Right. And that's
difficult.
difficult.
We just can't afford it,
That is difficult, but yet that's how we run our households.
Well,
we
that's
have
exactly
a budget,
right.
and if you don't have the money for it, you don't buy it.
That's right.
Well, we're kind of running short on time here. Is there something you want us to know just very briefly before we end this time?
The only thing I would add is that I've enjoyed talking with lots of people about lots of these different issues. This has been a very entertaining, fun process for me to run for public office and get a chance to talk to lots of different people and see all this diversity of opinion that you have within our community.
Yeah. Well, it's just been a pleasure chatting with both of you. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And if you would like more information on Dave Dotterrer, go to www.davedotterer.com. I'm Angie Christensen, and I'm urging you to stay informed. Bye for now. All right.